Okay. Um, Fifth time's a charm here. This is a FAFSA demo that I offered. This is the demo website that I'm highlighting in blue. I have it open twice because when you click to get to the demo, all of this practice names disappear. So I suggest that if you are a parent, student, whoever, wanting to play around, you go to this website and then you can practice a bunch of stuff. If you're a college freshman and you want to renew, you'll use these logins. If you want to practice corrections, you'll use these logins, and so on and so forth. I'm going to be going with a new user. Just a note, I'm not affiliated with FAFSA. I'm not affiliated with any organization. I'm doing this on my own time, from my own computer. And I'm not guaranteeing that if you do this, the absolute best to your ability and everything is correct, that you're going to get the financial aid packages that you want, and all that other good disclaimer stuff. So I'm just going to do this straightforward with a not difficult case. If you are an educator or a parent or whoever, and you have really complicated situations, this may help some of it. I will do some caveats, but I'm not going to go deep into, oh, the student has this situation, that situation. Just a note, I was a professional trainer at some point, and I would train people in how to support students doing financial aid. And my financial aid days were 2 full days, 7 hours each, and I'm trying to keep this between 30 and 35 minutes. So I cannot get into the nitty gritty of FAFSA when it comes to complicated cases, nor can I get into a whole bunch of stuff of what happens when you're done. So this is the demo site that I cannot recommend highly enough, except it crashes all the time. Um, and I'm going to be new user 70. And before I do this, so now I'm now the student. Before I do this, I'm going to come to this website here and create my FSA ID. My FSA ID is just a way to determine my eligibility, verify who I am, and my parent also needs an FSA ID separate from mine. So I need one, and one of my parents needs one. If I live in a mixed status household, you make one for the parent who's eligible. If neither of my parents are eligible for an FSA ID, that is one of the things that I will cover at the end. That's one of the caveats. All right, so I am the student. Nope. I'm new user 70. That's all my fake information. Now I'm a high school teenage boy. And this is my password. First year 70. I always use this guy just because I can always find the name. And I am going to log in. And I'm accepting. Sorry, I'm in New York and you're going to hear New York streets. And I am in New York. This will be slightly New York focused, but the focus on New York will be relevant to almost every state in the country. I'm accepting the disclaimer, which is telling me, which appears because years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, there was a FAFSA breach. There was a data breach, like there's been everywhere. So this is just kind of a warning about that happening in the sections of different stuff. If you decline it, you're going to be kicked out. So I just accept it like we do terms and conditions for everything. So here's one of the places a student makes mistake right when we get here. Sometimes students will think that they want to do the 2020-21 because that's what year it is, but I'm not going to be a freshman this year. I'm going to be a freshman next year. If I was going to be a freshman, I'm graduating a semester late or a semester early, and I was starting in the spring of 2021, then I would do this one, but I'm not. I'm a freshman. I'm a high school senior currently, and I will be a freshman in September 2021. And I'm creating a save key just in case I need to get up and do something. I need to cook dinner, clean, walk the dog, do whatever, or I get stuck. I don't have the right things in front of me and I get stuck. What you should have in front of you is your financial information from 2019, not 2020, 2019. FAFSA goes prior year. So I'm a freshman in 2021. I need 2019. I'll be a sophomore in 2022. I'm going to need 2020. FAFSA gives you a lot of information to guide you. So this is sort of like an FAQ here. I won't be looking at this because I've done FAFSA 7,000 times. I've even done this a bunch of times. So my stuff is here already because I created my FSA ID last night. And now my John last name, my fake social, all this stuff is here. And that was pulled from my FSA ID. You can log into FAFSA without an FSA ID, but if you're eligible for one, just go ahead and create one. It makes life easier. The demo site does get a little slow, but hopefully we won't crash. Adding my phone number, my email is pulled from my FSA ID. And I'm going to say that I'm actually in New York. And I'm going to show you why you want to make sure that you are putting the correct place. That's Brooklyn. My state is New York. And it wants to know how long I've been in New York because New York has state aid. Like almost every single state, if not every state, has state aid. And FAFSA is required for state aid across the country. If you are an undocumented student, you cannot file FAFSA, not electronically at least. If your state offers aid to undocumented students, there will be a separate application. Like in New York, we have the Jose Peralta Dream Act application, which gives you access to New York state aid. I believe Texas and California also offer aid to undocumented students, and they'll have their own system. So I'm going to be a citizen for this as John. Eligible citizens include green card holders, refugees, and asylees, and you will have to prove that status. So refugee, asylee will show a letter from the judge from the immigration courts, and green card holders will show a copy of their green card. And know that you are not proving most of this to FAFSA. FAFSA is just an application that's taking your information and doing some algorithm work and doing some really complicated math work to determine how much federal aid you can get. The schools are going to ask you for documentation. Anytime you have to provide something, it's to the school. Eligible non-citizens, that does not mean undocumented students. That means people who have certain types of visas. So those are really, we're looking at international students who are eligible only for school money directly from the schools. I'm going to be a citizen here. So it's telling me right here that that my information is going to be transferred to my state application. So that for me, that's TAP. For California, that's going to be different. For Massachusetts, that's going to be different. But it's going to take my information, put it in that application, and then I can just fill it out when I'm done with FAFSA, in most cases. So I'm going to be getting my high school diploma, and I always just tell everyone to do first bachelor's degree. It doesn't really matter. If you're applying to college, you should have a balanced list. So you should have some 4-year schools and some 2-year schools anyway. I will not have a bachelor's degree. And I'm going to be never attended college. So I did college now. I've been doing college now since I was a junior. I have like 15 credits, but I've never been officially enrolled in a school. So even though I'm bringing my 15 credits, I never attended college. I never got financial aid. And I am interested in work study. You always say yes to work study, even if you don't know if you want to work, if you feel like you might not want to work because it's going to be too hard. Give yourself the option to get that federal money on your financial aid packages. So FAFSA uses algorithms and it uses what's called skip logic. So not every student is going to see the same questions. If I say female here, I'm not going to see the following questions, but I'm going to say male. So males technically in this country are supposed to register for selective service. And I'm going to say no, I have not, because I just turned 18. If you Do not register for selective service. You will not be eligible for federal financial aid until you do. That is an old, antiquated rule, and what selective service means is that if there is a draft, meaning the whole world is at war and there's a draft, your name will be entered into the draft. It is old, it's antiquated, I don't agree with it, but it is the situation. Another note, if you are 17, 18, 19 years old and you no longer identify with the gender you were assigned at birth and you were assigned male, this goes by your birth certificate. So unfortunately, FAFSA has not caught up with the times, and you have to go by what was put on your birth certificate. If you are an educator watching this is a really important point to note, because if you're working with trans students, this could be a triggering, upsetting conversation. So it's worth stopping and talking about. I don't have a driver's license, probably never will get one. I'm not in foster care. I'll explain the importance of that question in a minute. I don't know what my parents did. It never came up, and they're not home. I'm doing this by myself. I'm not going to bother calling. This is just for data, so it's okay. And you can always go change it. So I want to put my high school. I'm in New York. And let's see what comes up. Boom, my high school is right there. And we go next. So this is your colleges. You can put up to 10 schools on FAFSA at a time. Most students apply to more than 10. If you have a mix of public and private schools, you'll probably have around 15, maybe even 20. It sounds like a lot, but it actually winds up not being all that much. What you do is you put your first 10 and then you submit and wait till you get your student aid report in your email, and that should take 3 to 5 days in most cases, not all cases. Once you receive your student aid report, then you know the schools have received your FAFSA, and you can go ahead, remove your first 10 schools and put your next 10, and then do it again and again. Not that you should be applying to 40 or 50 schools. That's insanity. Don't do that. So I'm going to stay in New York because I want that New York tuition at my public schools, and I want my state aid, which is TAP. So I'm going to put Brooklyn College as one of my choices. I'm going to search. And there I am, my first school. I'm going to say next. Now, if I wanted to, I'm going to tell FAFSA. So remember, the schools are going to see this. So I'm going to tell the school that I'm living with my parents. I'm going to commute to school. Now, I could put 10 more schools, 9 more rather, if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that for the demo. I am single. If you're not married, you're single. If you are married at 17, 18, 19, however old you are, if you are under 24, you're going to be independent and not need your parents' information, just you and your spouse. Even if you live at home, like you went and you fell in love and you're 18 and you and your spouse live with your parents, you are an independent student and you will only have your spouse. But I didn't do that. I'm a single high school boy. I'm trying to get, single, ready to mingle. So automatic independency on FAFSA is 24 and up. That is the rule. That's what it is. So they determine your dependency because maybe you're in a situation where you don't need your parents' information, and FAFSA and the school is going to consider you independent. So if you have kids and you provide 50% or more of the support and you press yes, you're going to be independent. I don't have kids. If you have other dependents, I don't have dependents. I would be independent and I would have to prove it. So if I say I have kids, I have to show them my WIC case, my that the kid is on my Medicaid, that I have a job and I get pay stubs and whatever, and that the kid lives with me and not with his mom or somewhere else. The kid lives with me, but my parents providing most of the support, and I go to school all day and come home and, but I don't provide financial support. I'm still going to be considered dependent, even though I have a kid. So that one's a tricky one. High school students are going to say no to these top two, most likely. This is an important one. This is only after, I want to highlight it. This is only relevant after the age of 13. So if you were orphaned, if you were in any kind of care, highlighting foster, highlighting ward. After the age of 13, even if it was for a week, you can be considered independent. If you were in care from 14 to 16 and now you're home with your parents and everything is all good, and you are under the age of 24, but you were in care after the age of 13, you can be independent and only provide your own information, or you can provide parental information. Just a note, students always want to be independent because they think they're going to get the best packages from the schools, and that is not always the case. There's oftentimes a penalty for being independent if you're under the age of 24. So it's a conversation to have with professionals and with your parents. But you have a choice in this case, but only after the age of 13. We don't have emancipation in New York, but if your state does, then you are emancipated and you're an independent. If you are in a legal guardianship as of today, so this is not about the age of 13, this is as of today, you lived with a cousin, sister, brother, uncle, aunt, whatever, and you have gone through family court and you can legally provide paperwork that shows that you are in a legal guardianship, not some custodial stuff, a legal guardianship, then you are independent and it's only your own information, not your guardian, not your foster parents, just you. However, I'm none of these. I live with my parents, everything is cool. And if you can prove this, if you can prove that you were homeless and self-supporting after this date, you have to be able to prove it. Then you will wind up independent. But no, I've been living at home. Times are tough, but I'm living at home. If you cannot provide information about your parents, it's going to take you to the end. It's going to have you provide your own information, and you will not be eligible for Pell Work Study and only for the unsubsidized loan. If you can prove extreme abuse or neglect with paperwork from police, from ERs, from social workers, from teachers, from counselors, and go through this very traumatic experience and have to send all that information to every single school, you can get a dependency override and be considered independent. It takes a very long time. It can be very traumatic, and the schools can say no. You can provide them with x-rays of broken bones and all kinds of stuff, and the schools can say no, we still need your parent information. And my advice is, as long as it's physically safe for a student, if we can figure out ways to get the parent information, let's do it. But I'm providing parent information, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with complicated cases. So this is about my parents, and it says right there, highlighted, and it says up here where I am, parent. My parent, I'm going to say, are divorced. And I don't remember the exact day, but I do remember that it was cold outside, so I'm going to say it was January. And I remember I was maybe a freshman or a sophomore, so I'm going to say it was 2017. And I'm going to provide my father's information. It doesn't have to be exact. That's one of the things the schools will are very unlikely to check. I have all of my dad's information, dad's last name, dad's first initial, dad's birthday, and dad's email. It would be helpful if you use the email that dad used for the FSA ID. And they are asking about residency because this goes back to making sure that I'm eligible for the state aid in my state. That would be New York. Household sizes can be a tricky one, so it's automatically me and my dad. But I also have two brothers, so I'm going to say I have two brothers. Now, both of my brothers are under the age of 24, but one of them is in college. One of them is 7 hours away up at SUNY Buffalo. That brother is still considered a part of my household. That brother, his permanent address is here in Brooklyn. He's still dependent on dad. So if brother was over 24, out there doing his own thing, comes to see us, but is independent, then he's independent and he's not going to be part of my household. I also have a cousin living with me, an older cousin. Now that cousin works, that cousin pays bills occasionally, contributes to rent, contributes to food. He just has to live with us because parents moved back to wherever. That cousin is not considered part of my household because that cousin is not dependent on my dad. That cousin is independent. He lives in the house, but he does his own thing, even if he's under 24. He does not provide, my dad does not provide support for him. He just gives him a bed. So not, if cousin was being supported by dad, that would be a different story and I would put him here, but he's not. So I mentioned my brother's up at SUNY Buffalo and I'm gonna be in school next year. So there's 2 people going to college. So remember, I'm gonna be a freshman 2021, which means I need my prior taxes. That means 2019. So my dad already did complete. Most people do a 1040 and he filed single because he's been separated from my mom for a while and they're not getting back together. Just a note for parents and professionals, if you are married, if you are living together with your bio kids, do not do head of household, particularly if you're married. I think, I'm not going to say if you are unmarried and living together because I'm not 100% sure. But if you are married, do not do head of household. You will have to refile your taxes. FAFSA will reject it. The schools will reject it. Remember, FAFSA is just the application. The application is going to the schools. The schools do the verification later. Don't do that. If you, so I'm going to say dad is single. If you have the option to do this, and this happens because dad has an FSA ID, always use the data retrieval tool. That means that FAFSA is going to pull your information from the IRS. It's going to go into your FAFSA, and you don't have to sit there and manually put in every single number and do math and all this kind of stuff. The demo doesn't let you do that, but always do that if you can. So this is what it would look like. You would link and it would take you to the IRS website. But I don't have that. And then you're still going to see these questions. You're going to see a few questions. So you still do need the taxes in front of us. So I'm going to have a relatively lower income family. 30,000 in a house of 4 is relatively low. These 2 numbers are going to be the same. And a schedule is if there was separate income or any of these things happened, like with student loan deductions. This is relatively new and very frustrating. The data retrieval tool now pulls this information as well. So if you can use the DRT, please do. If not, just have it in front of you and be able to fill it out. I'm gonna say no. Because lower income families tend not to have that anyway. For lower income families, this is almost always gonna be 0, but you still wanna check. FAFSA tries to make it easy by telling you exactly what to do or where the information is. But this one is usually 0. And then you're just going to want to go through these questions. A lot of times, if you're working with lower income families, these are all going to be 0s most of the time. But then there are a few other questions, like, does dad have kids from another marriage or another relationship and paying child support? Mine doesn't. I said I had a brother in work study. Well, that would be for dad, so this doesn't matter. And do we receive child support? Yeah, so my mom, she's not rich, but she kicks in a few hundred a month. So I'm gonna be honest. It's not even through the courts or anything, but I'm gonna be honest. And then I'm just gonna look through these and see if any of them are true for me and my family. Some of this will be on the taxes, and some of this will be conversations you have to have with your parent. So this is another example of FAFSA using algorithms and skip logic. If I would have made the income higher, I would not have had the option to skip this question. These questions just would have been there. But anytime FAFSA gives you the option to skip questions, you skip them. Do not give extra information if you do not have to. So now notice it's student. It's saying you, that means it's me, the student. So I did work in 2019, but I didn't file. I don't need to file. I made way under the threshold. And the threshold for dependent students is like 6,500 or something. It's much higher than I made. But I did work. I made $500. I worked a summer and I was balling out of control with my little $500. And I'm going to be honest about that. And these are all the questions that my dad saw. I'm going to see them too. And they're obviously going to be zero for me because I don't have kids. I'm too young to have any of this stuff. And do I want to skip questions about my asset? Yes, I do. No one is a preparer. If you're watching this and you are a social worker, teacher, counselor, clergy, whatever, parent, you're not a preparer. So everyone's going to say no here. And we're done. So you'll want to print this if you can. I don't have a printer and I work from home now. Thanks, COVID. But you can screenshot it. Just so, it's good. Just put a folder on your desktop that says financial aid and just keep it. It's good to have. And now I'm going to provide my signature. And because I logged in with my FSA ID, I don't have to do anything else. I just go like this. And boom, I signed. I'm John last name. So I'm going to show you two different things to do for a parent. So parent has an FSA ID. They're going to do exactly what I just did. But they're going to have to log in. But let's say you're working with an undocumented parent or an international parent. So undocumented parents, international parents will use zeros for the social security number because they don't have socials. And that's okay. A lot of people don't have socials and won't be caught. Immigration's not coming into FAFSA. It doesn't work like that. A lot of people use zeros. Undocumented parents, international parents, diplomats. So there's not a danger there, but it's worth having a conversation about. And FAFSA will stop you if you're using zeros for the parent social. You cannot do that for kids. But if you're using zeros for the parent social, it's going to say, hey, I don't think this is right. And just keep pushing like, yes, this is correct. This is correct. And it'll push you through. So parents who are undocumented or international can't get an FSA ID, but there are other options to submit. And I'm going to print a signature page and I'm going to figure out how to do that. So we're going to show, this is exactly what the signature page looks like as the parent. I'm going to do my little scribble scrabble. I'm going to do it twice. I'm going to mail it to this address here, 2 separate envelopes, 2 separate stamps, just to make sure they get it. And I'm going to, instead of doing my state aid application in the same sitting, I'm going to wait until I get what? The student aid report. But that's going to take longer because I had to fill in this, I had to do this manually. I had to do snail mail. So this could take 2-3 weeks. And then you do your state aid report. You do your state aid application. But yes, so that's right. Let me see. It's not letting me. Next. I'll choose another way to sign. My bad. So I don't think it actually, it doesn't really let me do that because, so let me see if, or you can submit without signatures and it's gonna kind of be in limbo. Let's see what it looks like. It kept crashing, so I never actually got to this point. Oh, sugar plums. Submit my FAFSA now. There we go. So now my parent, and this is what it looks like. So you'll see all of your schools here. I don't have my FSA ID, but it would be 0. And FSA ID, EFC. EFC is expected family contribution, which basically means how much you're expected to pay. So if they say 0, then you're expected to get full financial aid. doesn't mean it's going to work like that. So it's telling me I'm probably going to get a pretty high Pell, and I can get the Stafford loans, which are the only loans you ever want to take out, if at all. You want to print just to have it. I mean, obviously we're not going to print. We'll want to save this on our desktop until we can print. And then you're going to wait until you receive your student aid report. You are going to make sure that everything is correct. The student aid report will tell you if you've made any mistakes and you want to correct. And then you follow up with your schools. And if you don't get the best aid report, oh my goodness. If you don't get the best financial aid award letters, you appeal. I'm not going to get into all of that because I said I was going to keep this very simple. So just a reminder, under 24, you are a dependent student. Students with undocumented parents can absolutely file the FAFSA. Undocumented parents will use zeros for the social and use a signature page. Any parent who's eligible for an FSA ID should create one separately from the student, so separate emails, separate phone numbers, etc. And if you have really complicated situations, you should seek out a professional, and you should practice on this website that I highlight here. And that's it. Good luck. I hope this goes easily for you and that you have a smooth time. And you'll notice I did not say my name. I did not provide you with any contact information. If you know how to get at me, you know how to get at me. Good luck.